you were here. Very, very, very big Breslover Chassid. His name is Rabbi Yitzchak Breiter. Like many Breslov rabbis, they don't enjoy when their students call them rabbi. They prefer to be called their friend, because there is only one Rebbe, and everyone else is just trying to figure out what he means and how to get close to Hashem. When you go to Uman Bezrat Hashem with me this year, which we'll talk about after the class, you won't know the difference there between the rabbis and the people who came to Uman for the first time. Because nobody thinks that they're something that they're not. And by the way, this is the key to being close to Hashem. Rabbi Nachman says the key to being close to Hashem is to stop pretending that you're something that you're not. Stop pretending that you figured it all out. Why should it be that because I'm wearing a black hat and because I have a shiny black kippah and because I have a strap-on beard that I put on every morning before I leave my house, just so people think that I'm official, why should that mean that I don't have problems? Why should that mean that I don't have difficulties? Why should that mean I don't have skeletons in my closet? Why should that mean that I am not suffering? But if I want you to listen to me, I have to tell you I know what I'm talking about. I figured it all out. But the beautiful thing about Rabbi Nachman's students is they've already admitted we don't know what's going on. But we have a teacher who did, and he is not trying to make you anything other than yourself. Rav Arosh's daughter died in a car accident not so long ago. Rav Kramer had to bury his daughter just a couple years ago. I said, I don't understand, Rav Kramer, how are you always talking about being happiness? Why don't you also talk about sadness? Why aren't you allowing us to feel sad? Why do you never speak about this? So he said, what, you don't think I go through anything? I just buried my daughter. Everybody goes through trials and tribulations in their life. But the student of Rabbi Nachman does something different. He borrows from the future. This is a famous saying of one of the biggest Breslov tzaddikim, that you need to borrow from the future. What does it mean to borrow from the future? I thought, borrow from now. Because in the future, we're going to know that everything that happened to us was for the very best. We all know that. Chazal teaches that. It's not an opinion. It's not a shita. It's a Gemara. You can't contradict the Gemara. Then we're going to realize everything is for the best. So if I know that that's going to be the case in the future, I'm going to know that, and right now I don't. I can believe in that. That even this is for my good, even though I don't know how. How does a person allow himself to believe that something's good for him, even though he doesn't understand how? There's one answer. Anava, humility. Only a person who's truly humble can say, I don't need to understand how this is good for me to believe this is good for me. It takes one thing. That I acknowledge that just because I don't understand something doesn't mean it's not true. That is the hardest thing for a person to do. But once he can, and once he does, then Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I, Hashem, am your God that took you out of Mitzrayim from slavery. Because it is our preconceived notions that we have to understand that everything is for our good in order for us to believe that everything is for our good. That is why we still feel like slaves in Mitzrayim. So what do we have to do? We have to borrow from the future. Rav Breiter, who he made everybody call him Yitzchak, he had a group like this, and he learned Rabbi Nachman's teachings with them every day. and he used to make them all do an Arabi Bodadut every day. But they were all just friends, trying to figure it out together. One day, Rav Yitzchak Breiter gets arrested on trumped-up charges. Because not every government is so kosher.
For no reason, you got arrested.
Yes, for no reason, right? They take him in silver chains, big, heavy iron chains, probably, with the guy next to him. They're walking down. The guy next to him's crying hysterically, and he has a big smile on his face. He looks at the guy next to him and said, "Why are you so sad?" He goes, "What are you talking about? They just arrested us to go to jail. We didn't do anything." He said, "What's the difference between being in iron chains and being in gold jewelry?" Right? Everybody's excited to go get their gold jewelry from 47th Street. Yeah? What's the difference between the two colors? It's just the color. Okay, wow, this guy is like, he's got to be all talk though, because once they get to the court, you have a family, you have kids, you didn't do anything. What if they're going to sentence you to go to prison? Yitzchak Breiter, you are sentenced to 5 years in prison. He got up and he screamed, "Baruch Dayan Emet! Thank you, Hashem!" They thought he was insane. They said, "Rebbe, you didn't do anything. You're going to go to jail for 5 years. Your prison sentence starts right now." He said, "It's all for the good. Everything's for your best." He gets to jail. By the way, it's not like here. You get like a college degree and you get to watch like Netflix in jail. It wasn't like that over there. They like the most unlivable conditions. It was a health risk. You think COVID is a health risk? To go into jail in Eastern Europe 100 years ago was a much bigger health risk without any COVID virus. He's in jail and they're starting to shave off everybody's hair and beards. Why? Because that's what you do when you go to jail. They shave you off and they give you slave clothing. But Yitzchak wasn't a slave. So he's going by, they're cutting their hair, but now he's nervous. He wasn't nervous when he got sent to prison, but now they think he might cut their beard. Oh my gosh, a chassid, he's cutting his beard of his, not because his wife doesn't like it, his wife's fine with it, so then there's no reason I should shave my beard. And he starts to cry to Hashem, "Hashem, please, don't shave my beard. Don't shave my beard." And his crying is becoming intense. They're cutting this guy's hair, cutting that guy's hair, one guy, next guy. And literally that the guy next to him, and he's screaming to Hashem, "Hashem, please, do not shave my beard." And as they go to the cell next to him to put the blade on his neck, the blade broke off. Snapped off on the floor. And the guy wasn't trying to shave everybody's beards, he's just doing his job. So the blade broke. Okay, so tomorrow, I guess I'll try again. 3 days later, Russia took over Poland and released everybody in prison. He served 3 days in his 5-year prison sentence. Why? Because everything that happens to a person, whether good or bad, is actually for his very best. And a person who learns Rabbi Nachman's teachings and talks to Hashem every day and tries as hard as he can to bring these teachings into his life, he gets to experience in a felt way, not just in an intellectual way, but that he actually feels that that's a reality. It's this Torah. When did Rabbi Nachman give this Torah? So, as we know, Rabbi Nachman was from Breslov. However, before he was in Breslov, he was in a city called Zlaplia. This city was the city where he underwent tremendous isurim from those around him. Why? Because he was becoming famous. Because there was already a gigantic tzaddik of that area who initially welcomed him with open arms, but as soon as his following was becoming very big, he was not such a big fan anymore of Rabbi Nachman. And what was one of the biggest reasons that people were against Rabbi Nachman? So Rabbi Nachman says the reason why everybody was really against him was because he was teaching about prayer. But explicitly, what was the outside reason? So we're going to start to learn one of those things tonight. Prior to giving this lesson in Zlaplia in Shavuot, he was only there for 2 years. So he already had tremendous opposition from Hasidim themselves. Rabbi Nachman told the story of his great-grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov had many devoted students. One of them was Mamash a Chassid. He was really a kosher Jew. He did everything he could to be close to Hashem. He was honest, he was genuine, he was humble. He was really doing his best. However, he got very sick. He got very, very sick. And he went to the Baal Shem Tov HaKodesh, and he told him, I don't understand. The sages teach that if a person does tshuva, real tshuva, in his lifetime, he can't pass away before his allotted lifetime. Meaning, let's say a person's supposed to live 80 years. So if a person does complete tshuva, he will eventually pass away because everybody has to pass away. But he will never go before his time. But he said, I'm going before my time.
How do you know?
It's a good question. I like how you guys all got into it one time. That was your time. This was his time. He felt it was not his time. How did he know? Because the Baal Shem Tov agreed with him. He said, you're right. So what's the problem? I did tshuva. So what did he do? The Baal Shem Tov went over to him, and he was gravely ill. He wasn't just, he got very, very, very sick, like deathly sick. And the Baal Shem Tov went over to him, probably on horse and buggy,